I am ready to go, Karen. Are you ready to go?
I am always ready, John. Do you not know this about me?
I brought my new toy from the dollar store, which is one mini garbage can, and I had to show it off because I fucking love this thing.
And I don't understand it at all, so maybe you're with me. Do you understand this fascination with a mini recycle can?
I think it's designed to be a pen holder, but I was just at some government office and they were using it as a little trash can. And I thought that was phenomenal.
Well,
and then I
that's
had to go
cute.
get one.
Like for name tags or something, or candy wrappers?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, perfect. So welcome to Right
Fucking.
Now. I have a new idea. Let's go up high five. Can we do this? Like a lean in? It's something new right there. For those of you who are just listening, we're capturing this image that you're seeing for this episode.
Yes. We need to do our thumbnails every time.
Every time.
Every time.
Every time. Karen?
Yes?
I think you're jumping us off today.
I am. I'm so excited. I work with this woman part-time who just kicked ass. She just enrolled like 7 people in her business and in the company we work for together. And one of the things that she does is she practices sex magic. And I'd heard of it and I'm like, okay. And it just kind of went over my head. And then I looked into it and I'm like, this is brilliant. So sex magic, or being a sex magician, means you're using the energy of arousal or of orgasm and you're combining it with a clear intention. So last night we got together, we did a meditation with our Dr. Joe group, synchronizing your life to a new, your energy to a new life.
That's the one.
Synchronizing your energy to a new life. And in this meditation, you're like fully embodying this future version of yourself that already has everything you want, who's done everything, she is everything. And I combined that image and I started to allow my body to feel aroused by it. And I was so turned on. And then at night, I went home, like after that, and I finished it. I heightened that arousal, if you know what I'm saying. And at these moments of climax, I was like fully envisioning what I want to create in my business and in my life. And talk about some potent manifesting energy. And I could feel it. I could feel it like rippling out into the universe. And it's like so done. And it just added like a whole new level. And it's something that I love.
Yes. In truth, who doesn't? I mean, maybe there's some people who don't, but I mean, come on, if you're being honest with yourself.
And if you're listening to our show.
Yeah, if you've listened to one episode before and you're listening again, I love this idea. And I became curious about it when I first heard a couple of years ago and researched it. And I was like, logically, it makes perfect sense. Dr. Joe 101, or everyone's 101, clear intention with an elevated emotion. And what could be a faster, easier way to elevate your emotion other than sex? Probably puppies, and then ice cream would be my top 3 list. But sex definitely is like leaps and bounds ahead of all the rest. Like it is a state of pleasure. So how could you, if you can lay that image down on top of it? And as you were speaking too, it was bringing Pavlov's dogs to mind, and you almost start to condition your body maybe when you pick up a specific thought of whatever you're focusing on, do it, I don't know, I guess the studies show X number of times, right? Like 16 times or something before it's a habit. So you consciously bring up that focus in that sexually aroused state, and probably at a certain point it'll flip and it'll just sustain itself.
Yeah.
Which is a phenomenal
And I was
idea.
doing it both ways. So last night in the meditation, obviously I wasn't doing anything to myself, right?
Was that obvious? The room was dark, Karen.
Okay, well, it was obvious to me. I do have some boundaries, you know. But it was allowing the image and the feeling of what I was creating to turn me on sexually, and then using them in conjunction that way. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm turned on, I'll think of what I'm creating. It was allowing the feeling of what I'm creating to turn me on.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I was just listening to an Abraham earlier today where she was talking about focusing in on images or things occurring in your reality that bring you pleasure, and just for the pleasure of it. A lot of these concepts are like simple and I've heard them before, but then there comes a moment where you're like, I like heard that, right? And it like, something like clicks in. And she's like, can you appreciate, she was giving a bunch of examples, but she was like, can you appreciate the Mona Lisa without actually possessing it and owning it? Can you look at it and be like, this is awesome, just to look at the pleasure of the moment and looking at it? And then she's like, can you just scale that down to your daily life you're in like a carpet store and she's like, you really like the color of the carpet. Can you just look at it and be like, this is delicious. I love looking at it, without having to take the next step and be like, how do I possess it and how do I bring it home? She's like, just chill, and like, as things trigger you in a joyful way, stop right there and like lean into that appreciation without needing to take stuff even further. And she went spicier, since we're kind of on a sexual topic. I love this Abraham clip because she went spicier than I've ever heard her go before. She goes, if you like the curves on the woman's body you're looking at, just look at the curves and appreciate the curves for the joy it brings you in the moment. And then for the women, she's like, if you're looking at the curves of a woman's body and you appreciate the curves because you would like to have those curves, just like appreciate it in the moment without like bringing it home to yourself through like a lens of judgment or whatever. And that was pretty spicy for Abraham. But I was really hearing her just look at what you like to look at. Puppies, ice cream, women, big businesses, big wads of money, like whatever it is as an end in and of itself.
Right.
And a lot of them do. I mean, Abraham always says sexual energy is source energy. She's like, that's what source energy is. And that's why when people ask her about sex, she's like, you don't want this like adult sex. She's like, you want teenager, back of the car, like passionate sex, because that's like the exhilaration and the joy and like the real thrust. So if you're able to like, pun definitely intended. So if you're like, there's like a natural almost like sexual energy that comes with like a huge wad of muddy or like a huge litter of puppies. You're just like, wow, well, maybe not that kind of weird example. But it's like that, it's that real like passionate exhilaration, right? Like I want to act on this. I want to do something because it feels so good.
Yes, I love all that. And I've been practicing with this book, Existential Kink, of allowing myself, my body to enjoy the sensations of the thing I say I don't like. So for me, like if I can really enjoy the things I say I don't like, you bet your ass I can enjoy the things that I want, right? Like the things that I'm creating. So for me, because I've been practicing this for a while now, this was super easy to bring it.
Yeah.
So instead of like saying, oh no, I don't like to feel shame, like enjoying it, like when I feel shame, oh my gosh, it feels delicious in my body. I mean, it's so weird to say it, but it feels very pleasurable.
I can pull a lot of power from that.
Yeah.
Bashar's core statement on the structure of reality is that the gift of life is that it's meaningless. Every circumstance, every sensation in your body, everything is a meaningless prop, and you as God self, source self, whatever you call it, universe self, get to give it meaning. What cooler thing could you have than that? You were probably at some point taught and conditioned almost like Pavlov, when you feel this, it means this. And as he says, you assign meaning so quickly to so many things, you don't even realize you're doing it. But when you stop and look at it and then fucking redefine it, you've just become the creator of your own reality. You're no longer victimized by sensations in your body because you've redefined them to benefit you.
And there's no more suffering because the meaning part is what caused the suffering.
100%.
So if I would experience shame and say, oh gosh, that means this about me, and this sensation is undesirable, then I've created my own suffering. But if I really take a look at it, isolate the sensation from the meaning I've given it, what else is it similar to? A freaking roller coaster, which I love. Like, so why not just enjoy it?
Yeah, 100%.
And then I don't need to create the situation that caused the shame in the first place anymore, because I can create it somewhere else. I can get that same thrill in other ways.
It's so cool to see all of life is really a mind game. It's really a game of consciousness, and it happens so quickly. It requires like slowing down and observing what's really happening, and then the more you play with it, you really start to see different outcomes. Last night in our group meditation, I was observing my mind really going during the meditation, and I was like, perfect, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to meditate, which Joe says the most common would you call it, definition, I guess, or like translation of the word meditate is to become familiar with.
Right.
So I was going to sit there and just observe and become familiar with all these thoughts that were coming through my head, and intentionally continue coming back to the black. Like, I see you, whoops, I slipped off, back to the black. A second later, whoops, I just spent 5 minutes in this other location with this other person that's not here now, back to the black. And today I've had the most amazing day of just, I'd call it like thoughtlessness. And another like pin clicked in for me where I'm like, well, I'm getting goosebumps now. I'm like, shit, I'm just going with the flow. I'm just going with the flow. Like, it's kind of obvious some things I needed to get done, some places I needed to go. And I was just kind of going there and doing it in like a just above medium, like neutral state, like a hair on the happy side, but basically neutral. But my mind is just like, and there's like tumbleweeds, and it's like a whole new experience. But so many things today went so like beautifully. I went to a place that normally has huge lines. There was like one person standing in line.
Wow.
And just several things. I was at the bank and like two people, the situation started off like a little weird, but by the end of it, I'm like laughing with these two other people at the bank, and I'm like, wow. And they're like, thank you so much for coming in today. And I was like, I kind of actually like didn't do anything. I don't even know what I said or how it got going, because my mind was just like blank the whole time, and I was just like going with the flow. And I think I'm catching on to the idea that previously I was so focused on being a conscious creator and so focused on commanding a manifestation or a specific circumstance back, that I was skipping over the like core first step of like letting go and surrendering to the flow before I even bother to apply focus to something. It's exhilarating to see.
That's such a great realization. So one thing I'm getting from that is, no matter where you are, how long you've been doing something, there's always more. If you like slow down, like you said, slow down and look at your results, number one, because the results don't lie, right? And if you can slow down and realize, like a lot of people will say like, oh, I'm unattached. Like I am in entrepreneurial circles, and people will say, I was so unattached to my results, but my lunch tanked. I'm like,
Right.
okay,
Right.
let's back up. Like, what do you mean by tanked? And again, it's the meaning. Oh, I didn't get the result that I wanted. I only got 10 enrolled people or whatever. Like, so it's the meaning, but also being able to take yourself out of it. And really, what does it mean to be unattached to the result? So I found myself in the meditation last night when I was thinking about what I was creating. I started to go down this rabbit hole of, oh, but how? How am I going to do that? And then I caught myself. I'm like, it's none of my business. The how, I get to just be in the feeling and know that it's inevitable. It is inevitable. And it created this spaciousness, this surrender, this softening. And I was able to go so much deeper. And I realized that I do that a lot. Like I'll give the universe orders. Like, this is what I want. And this is exactly how I want it to happen. I want it to be this kind of break. And I want it to, I'm like, what am I doing? Yeah. I'm limiting the universe and it's really interesting to see how controlling I still am. Like, I've done a ton of work on it, but it's still in there. Like, and I think, the need to control is like not feeling safe.
Yeah. So
it's something, again, like we're talking about slowing down and going back and looking at, okay, where's my safety come from and all those things. Is it recording?
Yeah, it's recording.
Okay.
Yeah, how is none of your fucking business?
I know.
Fucking now, it's none of your fucking business.
Oh, gosh.
That's probably one of the biggest, like, lies we were taught. I mean, again, all truths are true, so it can be your business if you're excited to play a game of matter to matter creation. From the perspective of creating purely from the field or consciousness alone, how's none of your fucking business?
Yeah. I had an analytical client. I think I've said this before, but this came to me one time during a session, and she's like, but how am I going to do that? I'm like, write this down. This is a really important equation for you. How = mind fuck.
Yeah.
How equals mind fuck? Because really, that's what happens, especially if you're analytical. You get into this, is this possible, or how is this going to happen? It doesn't make any sense. But intuition does not make sense. Creating from the quantum doesn't make sense, matter to matter.
Yeah, not from the pattern of thought we have going, or the collective consciousness has going. I was listening to this other random guy on YouTube who was talking about the biblical story I didn't mention this last week, right, about the fishing boat. I've been like hot on this topic.
You mentioned the random dude on YouTube.
Yeah, so I guess I wound up listening to another one of them. I'm gonna find out his name. If I listen to one more episode, I'll bring his name back to share.
Random dude. RD.
RD. So I was listening to RD the other day. He was talking about the biblical story of Jesus, I think, or the apostles were on some type of fishing vessel. They cast their nets to the left side of the boat. They get no fish. And then supposedly Jesus is there, comes or whatever, and says, cast your nets on the right side, and they have more fish than they can even pull in. And he explains this story as a proverb for the mind. And he brings like what science and psychology considers like a map of the brain. And apparently the left side of the brain is like the logical, quantitative, Newtonian physics side of the mind that's calculating and figuring stuff out based on what it's seen before. And the right side of the brain is imagination, emotion, like all those things, possibilities that you're considering but aren't hardened into fact. And he was saying it's a symbol for that. If you're casting your net on the left side in logic, what's been done before, needing to know how, needing to take action, your net's gonna come up with nothing in it. But if you trust the quantum model and the conscious creation model, you're gonna cast your net into clear intention, elevated emotion, right? The thought, the imagination with the feeling of it, and you're gonna bring up more fish than you can even bring onto your boat. And that really resonated with me as like a symbol. I love, maybe because I was raised Catholic, so I'm familiar with lots of these Bible stories where when I heard the original interpretation, I'd always be like, oh, this like never made sense to me. But I love these people who reinterpret these stories that I like learned and are so widely known, because all of a sudden I'll get goosebumps and be like, fuck, that makes perfect sense.
Love it. Yeah, and you're casting it on the right side into infinite possibilities, like into the field of infinite possibilities. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, cool to bring it home.
Woo! Let's go fishing.
Yeah, let's go fishing. Right, and what a great proverb, right? You're like, there's something you desire. The whole symbol, he was making it up on many different ways. Another interesting topic or like component to this that I became really curious about in the last week or two is my definition of appreciation. Joe uses the term gratitude, Abraham uses appreciation, Bashar tends to use appreciation. But this idea of what actually is the definition of it, it seems like everyone would know. But then the more I started Googling it and asking people, I was like, there is a wide range of definitions of appreciation. And what really triggered it was Abraham was talking about next logical step or expectation. And she's like, if you don't expect it, or it's not something you would consider the next logical step, it can't happen from you. Or happen for you. So like, right, we want a sandwich. We're like, well, there's stores all around that are selling a sandwich. It's the next logical step. I can hop in my car and go get a sandwich. But if you want $10 million, you're not like, there's 100 places around that have business generators where I can just go and get as much money as I want out. So it's not really the next logical step. So it can't come. So I was recognizing when I'm laying down a clear intention and an elevated emotion, which I would consider appreciation, I realized if my appreciation level was like, holy fuck, this is mind blowing, this is the most amazing thing that could ever happen, I realized I'm like creating a huge gap between where I am now and what that experience would be like. Going to get a sandwich, turning on the shower and having hot water, hopping in a car and driving 60 miles an hour, those are all like next logical steps. And it's like, I'd appreciate them at a level of being like, this is cool, this is great. I love having a sandwich, I love driving, I love hot water. But it's not like, holy fuck, there's hot water coming out of this thing, right? So then I started playing with scaling back the level of emotion I'm putting into things. And so far nothing's happened. But what I have noticed, some topics have come up with specific objects with people where I've discussed them for 5 minutes with really no resistance or like a little bit of interest, being like, that sounds kind of cool, that sounds kind of interesting. Like maybe the same response I'd have for hot water. And in the last week, crazy goosebumps right now, in the last week, like 10 things within 5 minutes to like 24 hours have come with like insane clarity as an experience or an object or a circumstance for something we were describing. And they were all kind of obscure and like came with such clarity. And this huge like impact hit me in realizing how big my emotion is. And actually, like with the sex magic, which is kind of why I was tying it around, if the emotion is like too far out of range, it's not the next logical step. It's not an expectation. It's like, holy fuck, winning the lotto moment. So I'm excitedly playing with like scaling it back to see what happens at like a, yeah, that's cool kind of thing.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And again, like you're not in that gap and not feeling the lack
Yes.
when you're that way, because everything seems very, very possible. Because it's
Yes.
only the next step. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Woo.
And Bashar always says like the greatest power requires the lightest touch. And he's like, you are God and your environment is you. It's God too. So he's like, what reason would a conscious God have to exert force over itself, right? Like if you were like shaving your own beard, I guess as a guy example, or like washing your own body, would you like aggressively like scrub yourself? Like I have to, maybe that's a bad example, but like you wouldn't get aggressive with yourself if you knew it was literally yourself. You're like, this is me. I can like do this effortlessly because it's me. So I just like gently place focus, gently give it a little push, knowing it's gonna come back around again. The idea of needing to like manhandle the shit out of something obviously shows that I don't believe I'm the creator within my own creation.
Wow. I love this nuance.
Yeah.
This is like a whole next level. And you have like 10 examples. Can you give us one?
Yes.
A clean
Probably.
one.
No, a clean one, huh?
All right, clean-ish.
Oh man, now that you're putting me on the spot. No, all of them were actually relatively clean. Yeah, I'm gonna have to circle back around.
Oh my gosh.
You know what's interesting? It's interesting. I'm literally drawing a blank now. If I called Cynthia, she could give 2 examples because 2 of them happened today with her. But what's interesting, this guy I was listening to who was talking about casting left and right side of the boat was saying there's 3 things you're gonna hear in your mind, which is a dead giveaway you're on the left side of the boat. He goes, if you're hearing, well, how the hell is that gonna happen in your mind? You know you're on the left side of the boat. When was the other thing? If you're saying, when's this gonna happen? You know you're on the left side of the boat because either you already have it in your imagination on the right side or you've separated yourself from it on the left side and you're asking when. The third was evidence, was the thinking mind saying, I don't believe this without having physical evidence. The idea seeing is believing. And Abraham, Bashar, Neville Goddard, every single person I follow has explicitly said, and you can find quotes on YouTube of them saying, it's believing is seeing. If you don't believe it, you can't see it. That's just the way creation is because you're the creator within your own creation. So you got to create it within yourself first. You got to believe it before you can see it. So it's interesting. I feel in like a phenomenal state right now. And it's interesting to see that like examples are being blocked even though I'm feeling the emotion of it because it's almost that idea of the logical mind being like, validate it for me. I need you to prove to me in the evidence, give me detailed examples. And yeah, that's my truth of like what's happening. And now that I have been recognizing a lot this Course in Miracles quote, when someone says something and it maybe has a trigger or maybe has like a deep impact on you, the phrase is, I recognize that thought as my own. So everyone's basically just reflecting back thoughts, sometimes verbatim, sometimes in overall concept to what you've been focused on. So I recognize that thought as my own and I recognize it as like a focus on the left-hand side. So maybe I'm intentionally eager to let it roll.
What's interesting is because you can't come up with an example, what I make out of that is you're so detached that the examples don't matter. And like you said, you don't need them.
Yes.
You don't need evidence. You're like, I felt it. And now in this present moment, that doesn't exist anymore anyway.
Yeah.
So you're being, for me, I see it as unattached and in the moment. You're
Karen,
in this present moment.
You're so delightful.
Oh, thank you.
And so lovely. And you doing that is like such a phenomenal example too of the greatest gift you can give to someone else. If someone else is creating their own reality and they're sharing a perspective that you can see they're like excited and passionate and deeply into, and you check in with yourself and maybe you're somewhere on the neutral to positive scale about it, or just neutral. You're like, I don't know, like that seems more or less reasonable. Why would you not like take the opportunity to build someone else up instead of like choosing the idea of knocking them down. And I'm like saying that to myself too, because I've been practicing that a lot lately. If like I really have no perspective or a little bit of a positive feeling, I'll be like, you know what? I can like reinforce this person because they're excited in creating their own reality and sharing something they're excited about. Why would I not be a cooperative uplifter for them? So thank you for that. I think that's like a beautiful real world example.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
That's how I roll.
Yeah, that is how you roll.
And you were talking about appreciation, and I know you've heard this. What you appreciates.
Yes.
Right? Or in rapid resolution therapy, the stuff I do, we say what you notice appreciatively will appreciate. So when I'm working with somebody and I'm noticing what's already working really well for them, and I'm bringing that up because it is human nature, like it's in our survival brain, to notice the gap. I'm afraid to use my hands here.
Oh yeah, we're still recording.
That's why we keep asking. This thing has a smart, not so smart sensor. Anytime we use our hands, it like turns off.
I'm gonna Google it, and by that I mean I'm maybe gonna Google it.
If in the present moment, in the future, you remember to Google it,
Yes.
we'll do so.
Yes.
No, I forgot what I was
The
saying.
gap.
The gap. So, I still don't know. This is the gap.
We shifted focus. You were saying with clients.
Oh yeah, it's human nature to focus on the gap. So if I notice what they're doing well, which is what 95% of everything is going really well.
Yes.
Their body's functioning well 95% of the time. It's just that little gap, that annoyance is what they're focusing on. So when you focus on that gap, it like, you might as well put your eye up to it and it's like magnified. That's all you can see.
Yes. That is such a powerful perspective. And it's no coincidence at all. I've been focusing on that lately too, in being like, truly, as Abraham says, the biggest conspiracy on earth is the well-being of the fucking earth.
Yes.
Like just driving somewhere today, I was realizing, wow, I had the most like beautiful drive. Right towards the end of it, some guy kind of like came in a little close in front of me, and I was like, and then I was like, I gotta be honest with myself. I just drove for 30 minutes on wide open roads in a beautiful, smooth car, like effortless, magnificent. And there was 5 seconds where like someone did something. It was truly fine. Maybe it was a little closer than I normally cut it, but whatever, it was fine. And I was like, I'm gonna let 5 seconds be what I take away from this drive instead of the last 30 minutes of smooth, easy perfection.
Yeah.
10,000 parts in my car working perfectly.
Exactly.
Who knows how many people paved this perfect smooth road, lined it. Like just think of the number of people and number of components composing a car and the road and the traffic signals and the everything to drive 20 miles, right?
Yes.
It's astonishing. And because 5 seconds someone gets a little close in front of you, you're gonna focus on that gap instead of the conspiracy that there's motherfucking well-being like raining down on you every second.
Totally. And what a lot of people do is they talk about what could have happened, but it didn't.
But it didn't.
It didn't happen. You're fine.
Yes.
So celebrate that you're fine. Like, I understand it, but you're fine. Like 99% of the time, you're fine. You wouldn't go up to someone and say, hey, you're healing really well. Because they would say, what do you mean? I didn't have anything broken. I wasn't sick. But the body is constantly healing.
Yes.
It's constantly repairing itself, like unless we're in a stress state. But
Yes.
even then, it's finding a way to keep going. But it's like noticing what's working all the time. So I'm going to do that to people. Oh my gosh, you're healing really well.
I love the what if game too. I forget who I got it from, but someone I was listening to was saying you can play the what if game for non-preferred outcomes, but because what if is completely conceptual, it's only fair that you then play the what if game for the equal amount of time of things going in a way that emotionally feels wonderful. It's only fair, right? Fear is literally projecting. This guy Krishnamurti, who's like an Eastern guru kind of guy, who I think he passed away, but I like to listen to him. And he always defines fear as thought and time. And you realize that's so fucking true. All fear, I mean, maybe 1% of fear, you're like, okay, there's a lion like right in front of me right now. What am I gonna do? But everyone's got to admit, 99% of the fear is a thought in the moment, and the thought entails a play out of time, when the truth is there's only now, and we're creating our future by what we do in the now. So the fear, as Bashar says, is the emotional feedback. Abraham too, hey, you're getting really fucking cold you're like calling forth a future you're not going to prefer because you're the creator of it. And emotions are like the hot cold game. Focus here, don't focus here. So yeah.
Yeah.
Boom.
In 99% of cases, fear is absolutely useless. Useless.
Mm-hmm.
Because all it does is make your mind focus on, it's a big focus on how do I escape, right? How do I escape? And your legs get really strong and your brain gets really dumb.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that's helpful. I mean, if you're running from a predator, yeah. Like maybe when I was growing up running from my brothers, that was really helpful. But now they're not around. No one's chasing me, John. Not even in a good way.
Facts. Facts. Oh, Karen, lies. Lies. It makes Jesus cry.
I mean, not physically.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
In other ways, yes, of course.
Naturally. There it
I'm
is.
pulling.
There it is. I pull. Oh, I love that phrase. I pull. Feels so good. To pull whatever you want.
I could. That reminds me, this is so off topic. In Argentina, when it's your birthday, they pull your earlobes the number of times it is your birthday. So everyone knows it's your birthday because your ears are all really red, and then they pull them.
Do they pull like hard?
Yeah.
Do they pull it the number of times for years
For
you
years,
are?
yes,
Really?
exactly.
Huh. I mean, that gentle pulling felt pretty good, actually. But
Well, I wasn't going to do it to you
thank you.
without your permission.
I appreciate that.
We don't live in Argentina. I love customs around the world.
Yes.
For birthdays.
Yes.
Or anything.
There are many. Or anything. That's broad and open-ended. I like that.
Well, all right. I want to go on a tangent just for fun.
Definitely.
So for New Year's Eve, my friend from Argentina, we would do all these New Year's Eve traditions from around the world. So Spain, for example, you eat 12 grapes and you make a wish with each one wish for every month. My favorite tradition of all time is from Colombia. And you run around the block with an empty suitcase. And it's supposed to bring travel opportunities to you. And it's hilarious because if you run with an empty suitcase, it doesn't go straight.
yeah, so it's like wobbling.
It flies, it wobbles, and then you get off. It's so hilarious to see adult people running around the block pulling a suitcase that's empty.
You know what's really funny? I could see, you could call that like a tradition or a superstition or whatever. It is motherfucking perfect conscious creation. It's a clear intention, which is a thought or a focus, the suitcase and the idea of traveling, with an elevated emotion.
Oh my gosh,
You're like
yes.
playing with reality. You're like, let's make it fun. And it creates that association, conditioning yourself of laughing with the idea of traveling. And what better creation is that?
I know.
That is awesome.
I enroll a lot of people in this every year.
We should do that. We should do a Right Fucking Now episode where we celebrate our birthdays with this Colombian
Yes.
tradition.
I mean, it's a New Year's Eve, but we could do it
Oh, right,
whenever.
you said New Year's Eve.
We don't need to wait till New Year's Eve.
Yes, it's New Year's. It's my birthday and New Year's Eve right now.
Yes,
It's a
right
whole-
fucking now.
Fuck yeah. It's a whole, each day is a whole lifetime. I love when Joe says that. It took me a while to pick up on it, and then I heard it once, and I realized at like every retreat and in tons of his speaking engagements, he always says that. He goes, one day, one lifetime. He repeats that so many times, one day, one lifetime. And I wake up every morning like, I have a new life and a whole lifetime right today. How am I gonna live it?
That's really interesting because one of the things he says is like, if you knew you could change your life in one meditation, how would you show up? What would you bring? And I'm like, fuck. I think about that when I'm leading healing sessions.
Yeah.
And I sometimes will be led to say that to the healees. Like, we have seen so many miracles. Like, choose to be one. Choose, make the choice right now. Like, tap in. And then to the healers, like, if you knew you could change somebody's life forever in this one healing session, what would you bring?
Yeah, what would you bring?
Like, this is somebody's mother, somebody's sister, somebody's son, whatever. These are people. I don't know. I just get really pumped up about that.
Yeah.
Because it's that intention thing and focusing it, knowing that whatever we could imagine is possible, and it doesn't have to take a year. It doesn't have to take 2 years. It doesn't have to take a week.
Yeah.
It
happens
could
in an
happen
instant.
when? Right?
Right fucking
Now!
now. Hell yeah. I can do better. Hit me up again. It can happen
Right?
fucking
Now!
boom. Yeah, that feels good. That feels
That's
good.
better. Add the passion.
Yeah. You just gotta want it. Shout out to Dr. Joe. My favorite phrase of all, right? You just gotta want it. It's another
Yes.
way of, it's a very simple way of saying, what are you bringing?
Yes.
Even though he says, what are you bringing? Double shout out to Dr. Joe.
We love us some Joe.
Gotta love Joe.
Feeling good?
I'm feeling great.
Yes. Boom. Thank you so much for watching and listening to Right
Fucking.
Now.
Ooh, that was so graceful.
I did a sexy one.
Yeah, you did.
Did you like that?
I loved it.
I knew it.
Peace out.